Thank you so much. I think I have a bunch of stuff to say and a bunch of thoughts, but I think the spirit is roughly along the lines of what was shared by the chair. I first want to just acknowledge that in some ways we're doing an excellent job, right? We're 68% of the way in basically 3 years to meeting our entire reallocation, right? Which means that in 1/3 of the time, we're 2/3 of the way there to meeting our housing production goals, which is very positive, and that's excellent. And I also want to acknowledge that our building permit turnaround time has improved by 20% just this past year. I thought, I'm always looking for those kinds of things, like where are we doing the same or better or worse from baseline from the past? And so that kind of indicator that, okay, this last year, 20% faster turnaround, I think that's obviously a step in the right direction. So that's good, that's really good. I think I do have to acknowledge, though, some fundamental frustration, because I think that as a board, we have sort of over and over, all of us across the political spectrum have said, housing, housing, housing. We really need to do something about the cost of housing. We allocated the $15 million to reducing barriers to housing. I thought those were a lot of really thoughtful initiatives that came back last year that we've invested in. I brought forward the proposal around self-certification that we voted on last June based on the Phoenix model. That came from some input from stakeholders that said, hey, Phoenix is doing a better job than we are in kind of getting these permits moving, so can we take a look at that? We passed that. We've, identified a whole bunch of parts of our county that we've been looking at. Can we reduce parcel sizes? Can we create ministerial reviews? A lot of the initiatives that some of the callers suggested that we look at, we've started looking at in 5 targeted areas. We're doing, with the parcel by parcel analysis, just like every board meeting, we have 2 or 3 housing items that were all about how do we build more housing. And what I've said kind of repeatedly is I'm concerned about building, the right kind of housing that's going to make sure we really are able to meet the needs of San Diego families. And so when I look at this, and on the one hand, I say it's great, 68% out of over in 3 years. But I'm very frustrated that this moderate, low, and very low remain just so far below the production levels that we need to be hitting. And I don't want to imply that we don't also need other kind of housing. We need it all. I would not say otherwise. We certainly need it all. But we're clearly not hitting what we need to be hitting in terms of very low, low and moderate. So yeah, I think it's worth taking this moment to just say, okay, despite all the initiatives we've passed at the board, as the chairwoman said, it doesn't seem to be moving the needle. Do we? Are there enough permits in the pipeline that we think we're going to see pretty big numbers that are different next year and the year after? Is there just a lag here in sort of seeing an impact of our policies, which is possible, right? Stuff takes a while to, we've passed these things in the last year, 2, 3 years, so maybe there's a lag. Or, maybe there's some other kind of gaps of work that we need to be focused on, particularly around this very low and moderate. So wanted to kind of take some time to hear from the team. That's what I'm really worried about. And you all are the experts, and I thought we had some great comments from the public on this as well.
Supervisor, through the chair. There are many challenges associated with these categories of very low and low. The most notable is funding and subsidies that are required to make these financially sound in order to cover that affordability gap between what families within these income categories can afford and what the market would dictate in terms of a price. So outside of those nonprofit developers that are focused solely on affordable housing, when we look at the private development, which is the bulk of what's coming through, the amount of affordable units is really dictated by the project. Some of the actions that we do to support and encourage more affordable units include providing an affordable housing liaison, which was part of the removing barriers package adopted by the board that could assist the project through the process across all county departments. other things that we do is expediting the review process. And so it's a 15-day turnaround for a discretionary project and 5-day turnaround for building permits. And other things that we're bringing forward in this year for the board's consideration are things like the inclusionary housing ordinance, which will require a minimum number of units be part of any market rate project coming forward to be at these affordable levels. So those are the things that we're doing to actively bring more of these units to the market. As we look at the pipeline, there are approximately 1,400 units in the process within the county's Planning and Development Services Department. And those kind of break down in that we've got 1,200 units within our VMT efficient and infill areas. And they're a mix of for sale and for rent projects. From this pool that we have right now, we're seeing there's a little more than 100 units that are addressing these affordability levels. That's what's in, but there are more that are in the works in terms of us working with applicants to encourage them to use density bonuses that will provide more affordable units. Also, our partners at Community Housing and Community Development Services are working with their partners in the private sector to bring more affordable housing projects.
Thank you. First of all, I think that's, I think the discretionary permits with the 15 days review and turnaround, I think that's obviously really helpful because I know that I hear a lot that permit delays and delays and delays is a big issue. So the idea that, okay, you're going to get your permit in 15 days if you're building an affordable unit, I think that's great. I think this inclusionary piece is super helpful. I think that's great. I just wonder if there's just more we could be doing. I don't remember which commenter mentioned something about deed restricted units. I do know that, look, like the cost of housing in San Diego is just so high that you could imagine there's not a lot of incentives for anyone to, like, out of the kind of goodness of their own heart, right? Like, they're not going to just build a unit and sell and sort of rent it or sell it at like a low, moderate, even moderate rate, if you can get, top dollar for it. That's just not the way business works. And I would never ask anything else of our business community. So, I mean, I'm just thinking, like, what else could we do about deed restricted units? I just wonder if there's some more stakeholder conversations we could have with our developer community that's really specifically focused on building affordable units that are not supported by subsidies, and like what else do they need to be able to do that? Because we're not going to be able to subsidize our way out of this problem. I mean, I think we've done a great job, honestly. Like all of our Innovative Housing Trust Fund investments, which have been great to make some county resources available, so we could have some of these big affordable housing developments qualify for, the state tax incentives and be able to create, capital stacks that are competitive. I think that's really helpful and great, and I think we're doing good on that front. So in terms of that piece of the subsidy work, I feel like we've done a huge amount, but I think there still seems like there's a gap here. Like, what else do we need to do to sort of support the developer community that wants to build moderate, low, or very low income housing, and they just keep running into barriers? I would love, if it's possible, to kind of for you guys to sort of focus on some stakeholder consultations with that specific subset of the developer community, because that's where I think we're not hitting it. Anyway, just does that seem feasible?
Certainly, and thank you for those comments, Supervisor. We are embarking, or we are in the middle of our development feasibility analysis work, which you mentioned earlier, where we are working with the development community, including market rate and affordable housing developers. We can, as part of our engagement, go down this line of questioning, add to what we're already asking them from an affordable housing standpoint. One of the things that we'll be bringing forward for the board's consideration as part of the DFA effort and another effort, which is the programmatic EIR to streamline development within the DFA areas and other VMT efficient areas, is to see how that streamlining could be paired with things like the provision of deed restricted units. So there is certainly opportunity, and we'll be bringing those back for your consideration this year.
That would be great. And just to clarify, I think sometimes we create these dichotomies, right? Affordable versus market rate. And then what we really kind of mean when we talk about affordable are these kinds of developments that are subsidized or meet or are able to avail themselves of state tax credits, et cetera. And then market rate is selling for top dollar because, the market in San Diego is real strong for housing. So I'm really interested in how do we create some incentives for developers to be able to make money on building affordable housing, like building for very low and moderate income folks. How do we create those incentives so it actually pencils and makes sense for our private developers? Because we got to be a partner in this. We can't do it all by ourselves. And I think, at least when I look at these numbers, and like the chair mentioned, it's not any different really than last year. So again, I think in some ways we're doing a great job, but then there's the other piece where it's okay, not doing much of a good job on this kind of really important hole in the donut for working class San Diegans.